Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alright, if you can hear, just put in the comments that you guys can hear. I'm not sure if the sound is picking up sound here, but I don't know if it's loud enough. So just in the comments, just put it there so you guys can hear. Or yeah, Allah. So, alright guys, another Jummah, mashallah, another week gone by, and I got opportunity to do a live stream. So I thought, you know what, I can't let you guys down, man. You guys are the supporters of Roots of Knowledge. Alhamdulillah. Aliyu. Alhamdulillah. Rahim. Assalam. Rahmatullah. It's quiet. I wonder why it's quiet for. Is it still quiet? Or do I have to increase it? Let me just try to see the settings. Setup. Okay, so input. Continue mic. A bit higher. Any better? Can you hear? Sound any better? I don't know if that's helped it. Or if there's any other. Yeah, can you guys hear? 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. So let me know if the sound is the same. Let me know if it's quieter. Because I'm doing this from a laptop. So you know what happens with laptops. Because sometimes settings change. Capture, properties. Okay. I think Fahim is saying it's good. So let's just say it's good then, mashallah. So anyway, how has your week been, guys? What have you guys been up to? So I'm going to show you my plants and show you how they slowly began to grow larger. This is one of my plants. Yeah, this was given by one of the classes about 2 years ago. This is the plant. This plant basically has got a big story behind it. This used to belong to Firaun, and then Firaun basically, what happened was, one joke, before you guys start quoting that Firaun. So this plant is basically, I don't know if it's a bonsai tree or if it's just a normal tree that's been pruned. What is the difference between a bonsai tree and a normal tree that's just been, stunted? Yeah, so this is basically one of those. And what happened was this plant used to be in a pot. There used to be a pot that came with a plastic pot. And then what happened was it broke off the roots, because one day I lifted it up and I shouldn't have done that. So I picked it up from here. Yeah, I lifted it up and it snapped from the roots. And then I was thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? So basically what happened was I got this. So this came with it. So I just took the plant out and I did my little DIY thing. And alhamdulillah, I made some du'as. And I heard if you speak to plants, yeah, they grow as well. So I think this plant thinks, when I'm speaking to you guys, I think the plant thinks that I'm speaking to it. Yeah, so I don't really have a name for this plant, but if anyone has any suggestions for names, yeah, just like I still don't have a name for the cat. It's just Catty at the moment. Catty. Yeah, Catty. And our previous cat was named Polly. So I'm thinking, you know what, I might as well just keep it the old name. But then it's that kind of thing, new cat should have a new name. Yeah, especially the kind of Asian thing, innit? Like if one of your cousins got a name, then you can't use it. It's makruh. It's makruh to use like a name that's been used by one of your. So this is one of the plants. And then you got this other plant which is known as the mother-in-law's tongue. This is known as the mother-in-law's tongue. So this plant basically, actually, you know what I could do? So I got this plant here. This plant is, I think it's outgrown its box, but I just realized I've actually got another plant that's dying. Yeah, another plant that's dying. This plant used to be a nice plant, but it's one of those ones that if you don't take care of it, it dies. Yeah, so it's just dying away. And this sand, I think, is good soil. I might be using this soil for that. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you this. So I'm preparing for the course, right? So Dreams course, inshallah, will be ready tomorrow, inshallah. I'm going to be delivering it. Many of you guys have been asking me and saying to me, can it be done online or anything? So alhamdulillah, the guys, the admin have been able to sort out online, and those who want to register online can register online. And if you just go to Asufa website, over there it should be there. It's on Asufa website, you're gonna find it there, so you can quickly just check it out over there. Okay, anyway, 10 might be difficult for me to do a live stream because tomorrow I've got basically the first half of the day from 10 till 2 I'm going to be doing the dream course, and then the other part of the day, the evening, I've got a wedding, so 2 of my students are getting married and I've got to attend the wedding, inshallah, and so that's my day gone. And then a Sunday I've got an event in the evening I'm going to attend, and this Sunday morning I'm just going to do like just some normal stuff, maybe make some videos and do my own kind of things. So yeah, so that's why I'm going to be quite busy over the weekend, so I might not be able to do a question and answer. So I'm thinking, shall I just answer the what do you guys think? Shall I answer the Curious Cat ones now? Yeah, I don't know if you guys have asked questions on there or you want it answered. I think maybe I'll do it now. Yeah, let me know. So if you guys want to ask questions, then inshallah you can put your questions up on there. Otherwise, then it's just gonna have to be whether I go on there. Okay, so first of all, I think I should answer these ones over here. Isa Ahmed saying, why is suicide wrong? Why is it a sin? Can't God understand how we feel? I'm worried that I will leave Islam due to all doubts I have, and so I would rather kill myself. I've been listening to a lot of scholars about Islam and I'm not convinced by any. Sometimes I'm not even sure if God exists. Sometimes I wonder if Islamic history is true and fabricated. I have a lot of other issues, and so I think it's best to end my life. Brother, I mean, what you need to speak to a scholar. You need to go directly meet a scholar, physically meet a scholar. Online, I would never advise someone online to get advice. Online advice about these kind of things. This is a very serious thing. If you're thinking about suicide, you need to get in contact with people. Very serious issue this is. This isn't something you should be asking scholars, because if you're at the level that you're thinking about suicide, seriously, I think, brother, you need to get help. And you're saying don't get help, but that is what you need to do. You need to go out, physically meet a scholar. Go and meet one. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever met a scholar. Go find a scholar. Go sit with him. Tell him your problems, and speak to your doctor as well. And this sounds very serious to me. And I would never advise anyone or online to get any sort of advice if a person's contemplating suicide. And people having doubts, that's one thing. But if you're contemplating suicide, that's a very serious thing. That's you really need to. I mean, I'm not an expert in advising people about saving themselves from suicide or anything. I'm not even trained for that. And I always tell you guys that, look, if you're not trained in something, just be honest. Don't beat people around the bush, and don't kind of like just go and make it out as though you know what you're talking about. I would say always speak to people who know. Yeah. And if you met so many people, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you with it. That's the honest truth. If you've met so many people, what advice am I going to give you that they haven't? I mean, I won't really be able to help much. I'm saying if you're talking about suicide, you seriously need to speak to a doctor. Speak to a psychologist, psychiatrist, speak to a doctor. These are big issues. I'm not trained in this. I wouldn't be able to give an answer. If you had a question of fiqh, if you had a question of aqidah, something specific, then maybe I can answer that. And if that doesn't satisfy you, then I can't really go any further. And that's general for everyone as well. right? If you are having some issues with these kind of things, you guys need to see experts, right? Expert who's trained in that field of dealing with this kind of issue. Anyway, right, so let's look at curious cat then, guys. Curious cat. Okay, so okay, where did we stop off? Okay, I think this one, we stopped at this one. I think it was this question, wasn't it? Was it a person really desired something in this dunya which is halal and then chose to not pursue it because they are worried they may fall into potential fitna if they do pursue this thing? Will they be rewarded for this? Is it good, or will they be considered weak and cowardly for kind of running away from the problems of this dunya? So okay, if a person really desired something in this dunya which is halal and then chose to not pursue it because they are worried they may fall into potential fitna if they do pursue this thing, will they be rewarded for this? Is it good, or will they be considered weak and cowardly for kind of running away from problems of this dunya? I mean, this is a very general question. I think the broad spectrum of this question doesn't really kind of justify giving an answer in 5 minutes, because there's so many aspects to look at. Generally, I mean, if a person has a desire, humans have desire for lots of things. If a person has a desire for something which is specific, for example, like has a desire to become rich, or has a desire to have a family, or has a desire to have a big house, or has a desire, to do something, then that desire that a person has inside is a good thing to have. However, if a person has a desire for something which contradicts something categorically in Islam, like for example, a desire to fornicate, or a desire to drink alcohol, or a desire to eat pork, etc., one of those things, then that person must control their desire. In other words, the person has to control acting upon that desire. That particular type of desire is totally impermissible in Islam, right? And this is what a person should endeavor in trying to control that desire. This is, like I said, if it's categorically against Islam. But if it's not categorically against Islam, where there is scope and it can be nuanced, like for example, you can become very rich, that's not against Islam, right? You can, I don't know, maybe even become a leader. It's not against Islam to become a leader. But at the same time, a person should always remember that sometimes a person's desire might lead them to compromising on Islamic values, right? So that's to be something we're careful about. So if a person falls into fitna, the question has to be more specific. Exactly what are you talking about? Because someone might think, oh, if I go for this job, I'm going to fall into fitna. What's the fitna? I may have to look at opposite gender. But like, is that really a fitna? Do you have to look at them naked? Is it going to be something of that nature? So this is why this kind of question is something which is very generic, and I think personally people should be specific. Mention the exact details of the question, and then I should be able to answer it. Okay, what books do you recommend to solidify your aqidah? Okay, so I mean, this kind of question, right? I think it's very good, but the thing to remember is there's some people out there who just are on this mission of just studying all sorts of books on a particular topic. You don't need to study all sorts of books on a particular topic. For Aqidah, I would say the most important thing for Aqidah is the Quran. The Quran is the source of all Aqidah, basically. If a person studies all the books of Aqidah but doesn't study Quran, then that person's at fault. Right? That person is making the biggest mistake, because they're going around in circles and they're leaving out the most important thing in their life, which is understanding what Allah is saying in the book. So that is the core of Aqidah, that the Quran is. Yes, then after that, what should a person pursue? After they've mastered the Quran, understood the Quran, studied the Quran properly from beginning to end, then after that, what I would suggest is that a person goes and studies some texts, like for example, Aqidah, At-Tahawiyah, Al-Fiqh Al-Akbar, and then after that maybe go into something more, let's say, like latest form of Aqidah, Ilm al-Kalam. If they want to go into Ilm al-Kalam, but they don't really have to go into Ilm al-Kalam, right? I would say to go into these kind of things. As for going into too many books of Aqidah, I don't really kind of think that a person, unless they really want to become nuanced in Ilm al-Kalam, because besides, the main sort of Aqidah of the first 200 years, you're not going to find something extra written, because the main sort of things that were discussed by scholars in the first 200 years, they're fixed now. Nothing's increasing. Ilm al-Kalam is like the fiqh of Aqidah, the kind of like discussions of Aqidah, the nuances, the background, the logics, how it works. And then, obviously, that opens doors to lots of other books. Okay, so that's my answer to that. Next, why are people so against Wahhabis? They just follow the true religion and condemn innovation. I feel many people from the subcontinent especially like to demonize Wahhabis, and I don't understand why. Alright, so this is a good question. First of all, what is the term Wahhabi? What is it used for? Because a lot of people just throw it around without understanding. So generally when people use the term Wahhabi, what they mean is, they mean a certain way of approaching Aqidah belief. And this is like a way which was attributed to Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Yeah, so Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab was a sort of like a particular figure in Saudi Arabia, about 400 years ago, 300 years ago. And this individual, he was going around, he was trying to, you can say maybe, revive people's belief, and try and correct certain things he believed were big mistakes people were making, right? And the methods that he used were not widely accepted by people, right? So he was like kind of condemning certain practices that were considered to be okay for so many hundreds of years, and then all of a sudden he came along and he was condemning them. So then what happened was this kind of strict sort of like, it was like a kind of like how the Christians have a Puritan form of a religion, where you've got this reviver that came along and he's done this kind of like a very strict approach to how we should believe, and then cuts out all the other things, right, and which he believes are unnecessary. And then there's a certain group of people who seem to be following that. So this is what generally people call Wahhabi. It was this kind of mentality, was this kind of approach in beliefs. So the problem here lies is not in, for example, what he was doing, was that wrong? You got lots of people in history who have attempted a similar thing, who saw in their community that people were slowly starting to deviate from the practices, the general practices that Islam permits, and they were going into dubious areas, grey areas. So some people saw this and said, you know what, let's put our foot down. Let's make a change. So it was kind of accepted by some people, and other people rejected it. You had the likes of Ibn Taymiyyah in a similar kind of way. You had some other movements that took place in different parts of the world. Some were documented and some were not documented. Then what started to happen is that the people inside of this approach itself began to differ, this Wahhabi approach. So some people began to take this as like, it's like, they've tried to cut out all of the extra things that people were doing, and just try and focus purely on what the essentials were. And then what happened is they began to become extreme inside the essentials, and then they began to call others who didn't agree with them as disbelievers. This is where it became very problematic, and this is where this mentality, like for instance, if for example a person came along and said, right, look, certain things that Muslim communities are doing, birthdays, maybe I don't know, some other sort of like practices that people do which they associate to Islam, might not be per se Islamic. Let's sort of like stop doing those. Let's all agree that this isn't necessarily part of Islam. Let's stop doing it. And people said, okay, you got a point, let's stop doing it. Although he's not saying to people, you're disbelievers for doing this. He's just saying to people, we all agree on these basic things, so let's just keep doing these basic things, and let's stop doing the extra things. Then what happens is someone comes along and says, anyone who does these extra things will be out of the fold of Islam. That is the problem. That's where extremism, this problem that we have nowadays with extremist groups that are coming out, and they kind of affiliate themselves to some sort of like Wahhabi sort of roots. That's where I think people have that issue. Yeah. So what I would suggest when people say things like, why are people demonizing a particular group? I think people need to study these groups carefully, and study it impartially, and then study from how other people look at it. And that way you broaden your horizon. Because if you're just kind of like looking at it from one angle and then you're saying that how come other people are criticizing us like this, and you're not looking at how they're looking at it, you're never going to understand. Okay, voting elections, is it allowed? Ikhtilaf, yes, I say yes. Salam, knowing that Allah grants ease ultimately is having a gemstone for the purpose of helping to heal spiritually, considered shirk, e.g. gemstones help in stressing. If a person has a gemstone, for example, keeps it on them because it kind of eases their stress, yeah, this is something which would be allowed, right, for stress relief purposes. Some people put some copper on their arm, some people may like hold on to something or whatever. There's scope for this permissibility. But if a person believes that this gemstone has some superpowers that Allah doesn't have, yeah, that's independent to Allah, that's wrong. That would be considered to be shirk. So shirk is only when you believe this stone has powers not given to it by Allah. Like for example, let's say fire, it has a power that Allah has given, it burns. So if you believe that fire burns, you're not doing shirk. But if you believe that fire is independent of Allah, fire has a power that it's sourced for itself without the help of Allah, then that's shirk. Right? So shirk is basically when a person believes that something has a power. Like if I say, this laptop has the power to project my voice and my image, live stream, and I believe Allah has given it this power because Allah has created the essential sort of ingredients that are required for this laptop to work. He created the laws of physics and He created the laws of nature, etc. Alright, next. Assalamu alaikum. Is it permissible to eat meat that is HFA approved, e.g. fast food chains like Big John's, etc.? So I actually looked on HFA website, and I'll actually read to you guys this because I think it's very important. A lot of people say things about HFA, but you need to ascertain whether it's correct or not. So I'm just going to read to you guys what I found, if I can find it. That is, I don't know where is it. HFA. They've actually got a website. If you Google them, you can find the website. Yeah, okay, I found it over here. So it says, does Halal Food Authority allow stunning of birds and animals? Right. So it says yes. However, one has to be reminded that HFA has always maintained no stun to kill. Right. And then it said there are two types of electric stunning that Halal Food Authority HFA approves. One is water bath stun for poultry, and number two, electric tongue stun for ovine meat, right? So, I mean, from what I've spoken to some people that are involved in butchers and slaughterhouses. They've told me that they use water bath stun, and they use this electron, and they say it does not kill the animal, right? So, if they're saying that it doesn't kill the animal, then I mean, acting upon that would be sufficient. So, I don't seem to see any issues in the HFA's guidelines. Unless someone can tell me exactly something that they're doing which is contradictory. Allah knows best. I thought you were much older. You look somewhere between 43 and 47. That's a bit specific. 43 to 47. MashaAllah. Okay, so I look older. Jazakallah khair. That's mashallah. You can see the noor cutting through my face. Allah. It's the noor, guys. Yeah, it's not the sun going through the blinds. Yeah, it's the noor. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If a person needs to do ghusl after ritual impurity and baths, but after bathing isn't sure if he rinsed his mouth or not, but does remember spitting out water due to shampoo entering his mouth, is the ghusl valid? So if a person, according to Hanafis, if you forgot to wash your mouth and nose, you done your ghusl, but you forgot to wash your mouth and nose, you can simply, when you remember, just wash your mouth and nose. And if you pray the salat, repeat the salat again. In this kind of situation, the guy's asking that he remembers spitting something out. I would say, just to be on the safe side, wash your mouth and nose again. And if you have prayed any salat, repeat it. And if you haven't, then your ghusl is done. Right? So Hanafis can like break down your ghusl over a period of time. You don't have to do everything in one go. Is a person sinful or not for not having any ambitions, goals in life, and just doing the basics that is required? So, in other words, is a person, so for example, like, what does this question mean though? Like, I am sure that everyone has an ambition and a goal. Some people's ambition is to have children. Some people's ambition is to have a family. Some people's ambition is to get a house and live. Some people's ambition is to get a job. Some people's ambition is to grow their business. Some people's ambition is to become a leader. Whatever. All of these are ambitions. And all of these can be things that bring you closer to Allah. Why not? Right? And they all can be valid ambitions. Like a person does not have to have the ambition does not have to be, let's say, for instance, very specific. You know, our ambition does not have to be that we have to fight in a battle. Our ambition does not have to be that we have to become shaheed in the battlefield. Our ambition does not have to be that we have to give da'wah to the entire world, or that I have to become the teacher of hadith or fiqh, or etc. It doesn't have to be that. It can be. The ambition should always go back to something which falls under the umbrella of for the sake of Allah. In other words, it's something which falls under something that Allah will be pleased with. Would Allah be pleased with if you brought up children with good manners, as good people? Would Allah be pleased if you started a business and your aim was to stay away from haram? Would Allah be pleased with that you purchased a car because you want to be able to earn for yourself? Would Allah? So these are all fine. These are ambitions. Yeah, it depends. Some people's ambitions are very high ambitions, and some people's ambitions are very low ambitions. So this is why I would say, look, as a Muslim, I say, my ambition is always to do something for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which leaves behind a legacy. That's what I always try and do. And I try to encourage other people to do that as well. Whether it's teaching, or whether it's giving charity, or whether it's helping people to set up some organization, or anything like that, I would say that is something which is excellent. So ambitions, yeah, go for it, do it. And you will not be sinful for not having ambition. Yes, you will be sinful for not praying salat if you have no excuse. You'll be sinful for, indulging in sins. Those are ambitions that are impermissible. Okay, need to ask something. There are many hadith that warn us about the harmful effects of jealousy on our spiritual growth, and it's one of the most dangerous diseases of the heart. I feel I get very jealous, not because of material things. You could be driving a Ferrari and I couldn't care less, but I'm jealous when it comes to people I love and care about. I find it very hard when, for example, to praise others in front of me. I'm working on it, but my question is, all the hadith condemning the traits, do they include this subject? So, this is a good question, and that's the last question on Curious Cat. So basically, look, no one is perfect end of the day, right? No one's perfect. There will be people who basically will have jealousy. Jealousy is something people have inside of them. Sometimes it comes in the form of envy, which is like you're really envious of someone else. You want to be like them. You want to do better than them. Sometimes it be in the form of something like maybe ghira, right? This kind of like positive jealousy, which is like you have this overprotectiveness over certain people. You don't like certain people maybe getting close to your teacher or your spouse or certain individuals. You want them to be protected from fitna, etc. That's also very good as well. Yeah. The issue, Imam Ghazali says, the issue with jealousy is the acting upon it. That's the problem. So having jealousy in the heart, that's fine. That's something you can't really you can't really change. But you can try and ease it. Some people will be more jealous than other people. It's just the way Allah's created everyone. So acting upon it is the problem. So in other words, what I would say is, like the hadith mentions, that jealousy, it eats up good deeds like fire eats up wood. So Imam Ghazali says what this hadith means is jealousy can lead a person to do an action which obliterates their good deeds. Like it stops them from doing good deeds. Like someone is jealous of another person so much that they are preoccupied from reading Quran, preoccupied from doing charity work, preoccupied from studying, or etc. That jealousy is wrong now because you're acting upon it, right? Okay, how should you get rid of jealousy? What I would suggest is there are like several things that you can do. One of the things that you do to get rid of jealousy is any person that you're jealous of is first of all make dua for them, give them some gifts, and stuff like that. So if you randomly start seeing people giving you gifts now, you're gonna think, oh yeah, that guy's jealous of me. But do that, I would say. Make dua for them, sincere dua to Allah, that Allah gives them barakah in their efforts and what they're doing. And then slowly you'll see that your heart will kind of like be content with that person. The second thing that you should do to get rid of jealousy is, the reason why we get jealousy is we can't see the bigger picture. Right? We can't see a bigger picture. So, it's like there's like a story, although it's not connected to jealousy. There's a guy driving a car, you probably heard this, and there was another guy driving a car. And this one guy was saying to the other guy, pull your window down, pull your window down. So he pulls his window down and he says to him, cow, cow, cow. And the other driver gets angry and says, cow, you're a cow, your mom's a cow, your dad's a cow. And all of a sudden, bang, the car hits a cow and he has a bad accident. Moral of the story is that not everyone that is saying cow to you is calling you a cow. Like, no, not everyone is against you. Look at the bigger picture. So, for example, if it's to do with the khidmah of the deen, like let's say it's teachers and some teachers are jealous of other teachers, what I say to myself is, look, aren't we all working for the same cause? Aren't we all trying to help the deen of Allah to be uplifted? So that the kalimah, the word of Allah is high. Aren't we doing that? If we're doing that, then you realize, all of these people, all of these organizations that are working, these charity groups and the scholars, and everyone is trying to the ila of kalimatullah. And then that eases and gives you content in your heart, and you think to yourself, you know what? Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. We're all together in this like a big family. That is, some of us are working on writing, some of us are on articles, some of us are doing activism, some of us are supporting particular, issues, some of us are helping the poor, some of us are raising awareness about, the plight of the Muslims around the world. Everyone is trying to they're trying to pick up and uphold the religion of Allah around the world. They're trying to give it its due status. So if we see it that way, then we're not going to be. The only thing that would annoy us after that is when we see people not doing things as they should be. That's fine, that is, right? Because then we become critical of other people. We critique them. So once we understand where our role is, like where is my role, I can't do more than what I'm capable of doing, right? There's going to be someone out there that can do so much khidmat of deen in a certain area. I'm not good at that. I won't be good. I won't be able to go out to different countries and help the poor. That's very difficult for me. I find it very hard to travel like that. But some people are very good and we should support them, alhamdulillah. I can't do it, but Allah utilized their capabilities. And Allah is utilizing my capabilities for something else. Yeah, so I think that would be a good way of looking at it. Anyway, let's look at your guys' questions. Let's see what you guys have to say. Okay, so right. So Arabic Hafiz Shu'aib. Is the aqad done if one of the guys said you can pay me later on and he didn't specify a date? Yeah, so aqad, basically if a transaction is done, and let's say for example I buy from you a laptop and then I say to you, okay, I'll pay later. So if the date of payment is something which you're not going to really argue about, then that's fine, guys. Yeah, that's okay. But if it's going to be something you're going to argue about, then the transaction is considered fasid. The bait is fasid. Okay, I appreciate honesty. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. If two people who are already married do another nikah for whatever reason, would that have any ramifications Islamic? No. You can do as many nikahs as you want. They're not really going to be, it's just going to be like a kind of like a role play you're doing. It won't have any legal implications. Please continue with Fawzul Kabir. It's very Jazakumullah khair, inshallah. I'm still trying to figure out how to make the text a bit more visible, because I've noticed that the text, I don't know if you guys have seen that, it's not very clear, the text, because the camera, I don't know, maybe it's the settings I have to change on there. But inshallah I'm going to try to continue that. I don't quite understand what the term balagha means and when is a student ready for it. Balagha basically means to permeate, to penetrate, like it reaches something, the depths of something. So when we speak, for example, like if I speak, right, so I'm speaking, and if I say a statement, I could say to you, what's your name, right? And I could say to you, do you have a name? I could say to you, what do they call you? Let's hear your beautiful name. So you see how different ways are there of saying things. Now you think to yourself, which way would you have been impressed if someone asked you on the street, right? So in other words, when you have certain statements that have more permeating, these permeating statements now, because they're of different levels, you can study them. So you can see what kind of sentence would I say that would be considered better than another sentence. This is called balagha. And balagha, it gives you how sentences are structured. We don't realize when we speak English or any language, we use so much balagha in the day, right? You say things like, is that the time? There's like devices of balagha in that statement. Or if I say, you know what, I've had enough, there's balagha in that statement. Or something like, give me a second. There's balagha in that statement. So it's like, to study balagha thoroughly, what you need to do is you need to peel away all of the extras, go back to the asal, the original, and then see how statements are said originally, and then see how people change them and add on extras. And that's basically what balagha is. I would say balagha, a student is ready for balagha depending on what type of balagha they're looking at. So if they're just looking at, for example, like the beauty of sentences, of how extra words are put. Like in English, we say things like, they say hey in May, and then pray until the end of the day. Yeah, there's some balagha there. Can you see the balagha there? That's a balagha. You don't need much Arabic grammar to be able to look into that. I mean, you don't need much English grammar to look into it. You just have to point out, for example, like you say, this is A, and that's A, and that's A, and that's A. But that type of balagha, that is something that I think that anyone who studied a little bit of Arabic and can just recognize basic kind of rules can study that. The other type of balagha, which is ilm al-ma'ani, that's something which a person requires understanding a good level of Arabic grammar. And if you've done my 17 lessons, I would say 17 lessons plus Surah Yasin, maybe, of course. And then maybe I would say possibly maybe Tabarak alladhi as well. After that, you're ready for the adon. Okay. Zakir Sidat, mashallah, mashallah. Lovely to see you. These live streams are very good. Share if you haven't done it already. Please link your YouTube page to Instagram. You can also live stream to people following you on there also. Okay, you can do it on Instagram. Yeah, so we've got an Instagram page. It's called roots.of.knowledge. Roots.of.knowledge. So check that out. But yeah, I'll look into that. Jazakallah khair for the advice. And inshallah, don't worry, I'm going to come to Blackburn, inshallah. Inshallah, I'm going to link up with you. You don't look interested in Black Friday. You know what? I can't be bothered. Who's going to stand outside a shop just to buy something for £10 cheaper? Yeah, it's not worth it. Isa psychology that you think problem with. Okay, SMB, can you give me some tips next week? Exam, email, some past papers, please. When you're there for the class, when I went through the paper. Okay. Wasiq wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Why are some religions have similar stories such as Christianity? They say life began Adam and Eve. In Islam, it also says. So, okay, this is a good question. The way we have to understand this is basically that, when you look at, for example, like Islam is a continuation of the message of Allah from Adam alayhi salam. So, when Adam alayhi salam came, Allah gave him instructions. And then after that, another prophet Allah communicated with him and gave him instructions. And like that, over history, Allah has been communicating with people around the world, different people. But what was happening was the message was being deviated, it was being warped, distorted, and different kind of religions began to sprout out of that. So you had like these made-up religions, just like nowadays you have some things like Ahmadis, and you have things like Druze or Baha'is, who kind of like came out of some sort of an early Islamic sort of like starting. So this is what was happening. So every time a new book would come, it would kind of rectify the mistakes people were making, because that's what humans do. They've got this habit of just deviating from the right way. Eventually what happened was Judaism came, Musa alayhi salam, and he rectified for the Jews their path. And then came the prophets after him. Isa alayhi salam came to rectify the way of the Bani Israel. And then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and the Quran was given. The Quran is like the ultimate rectifier of all the past books. It's like the ultimate, like Allah says, it's muhayminun. It kind of supervises and corrects all mistakes that have been passed down in other faiths. That's why you get these similar stories. Can Muslims eat halal food with non-Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists in the same plate? Yes, why not? As long as the food is halal. Can you explain conditions of wearing leather socks? So conditions of wearing leather socks, Hanafi say two things. That they go up to the ankle, and number two, you can walk a long distance in them. That's it. Sharif Will, wa alaikum assalam, my brother from another mother in the States. Can a male wear chain around neck, necklace type jewelry? So the Hanafis, with regards to this, the Hanafis say that look, things that are specific for women, only women should wear, and men shouldn't wear those. So that's why this topic of jewelry is a very kind of like uh, discussed thing by the Hanafis. Hanafis say, look, when they used to mention in them days, these kind of jewelry and these kind of things were things generally associated to women. So that's why the Hanafis say it's makruh tahrimi to wear any sort of jewelry, especially if it resembles women. But if it's something that's been explicitly permitted, like rings, stuff like that, then that's allowed. And if it's not primarily for jewelry purposes, like a watch, it's not for jewelry purposes, then that's permitted. So this is why the Hanafis have this issue with jewelry. Although I would say it's not like a clear-cut sort of like a ruling in Islam, but it's more to do with the issue of the resembling of the women. Okay, according to Hanafis, I would say men shouldn't wear necklaces. Can we have a book review today, please? We don't have a Q&A this weekend. Okay, book review today. I won't be able to do book review today because the problem is I'm going to have to go in a bit. I've got Salat, and then I've got badminton. That's the thing. And then I've got a lesson today, so 6 o'clock. I've got a dars, which I study, as you guys all know. Studying, and our class starts today, or restarts after a while, 6 till 7. So I'm going to be busy in class at that time. So I won't be able to do one. Inshallah, next week. Remind me, inshallah. I'm at Sufa now anyway. I'm going to go into the Sufa library and I'll show you some really good books there. Are you growing your hair out? So I'm going to be cutting my hair, guys. I've decided that my hair. Some of you guys saying to me, should cut it. Some of you guys saying don't cut it. But inshallah, I'm going to be cutting my hair. So as you can see, long, and it's a bit greasy as well. So just to keep it a bit neat. Is Black Friday racist? I heard it dates back to Allah. I don't know. Ustad, there are people who say that wearing ta'weez is shirk, and they bring hadith in Sahih Muslim as evidence for this. Is this correct? There's a big sort of like discussion about this idea that the hadith mentions about this concept of ta'weez and how many types of ta'weez are there, and what were they used for in the days of the Jahiliyyah, and then when the Prophet ﷺ was around, what was the mindset of ta'weez in them days. So this is why, a lot of people make big mistakes in understanding hadith. Like average person who doesn't have training in hadith makes mistakes in hadith because they just see a hadith and they implement it on whatever their mind tells them. So if a hadith says, for example, wearing an amulet is shirk, they think of every single thing that comes in their mind that is called an amulet today. They say it's shirk. So for example, like those certain types of bracelets people wear, copper bracelets, or certain types of gems, or certain types of calming stones, or Himalayan salt, having Himalayan salt, or whatever, these kind of things, they consider it to be wrong. But that's not the case. Ta'weez, which is impermissible, is something which has a big topic. Inshallah, what I'll do is I'll discuss this topic another time because I think it's something which is very beneficial. A lot of people do ask this kind of question. So inshallah, I'll discuss this another time where I'll talk about the different types of ta'weez and what the hadith mentioned regarding ta'weez, and what the Sahaba, were there any Sahaba that used to write ayats of the Quran and put it onto their children's, tied to their children's, right? So this is something that I'll discuss there as well. Anyway, okay, so let's just see what you guys said. Muhsab, you did not do a book review today. You're definitely losing badminton. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. That's not nice. That's not nice. Yeah. Inshallah, I'm not gonna win much. Because I learned some new techniques in badminton. I was watching some badminton YouTube. I learned some new techniques, guys. So hopefully implementing those new techniques today, and I'll let you know how that gets on. So Jazakallah khair, guys, for turning up. And guys, those of you guys who have exams, Sufa exams, Sufa's got exams next week. So those of you guys who got Sufa exams, may Allah make your exams easy for you guys. You'll see what my exam papers are like. That's what I'm going to say. Don't try to, get it out of me. You'll see what they're like. So, jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much, guys. And I hope you guys have a wonderful time. And if you have any other questions, remember, put it on Curious Cat. Put it on Curious Cat. And I'll have a look at them. And then, inshallah, we'll see you next time, inshallah. So, jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.